Hey y'all, I hope you are doing great, staying safe, and practicing your social distancing. This article I'm about to read to you, and I apologize, it's going to be reading to you because it's super long. It's a wonderful article from the primary analyst that I follow. His name is Barry Habib with MBS Highway. The guy is wicked smart. So I'm going to go into this. It is going to be long. It is very detailed, but it gives a really good overview of what's going on the back end in the mortgage world. So we keep hearing the Fed keeps cutting rates and all that, and everybody thinks rates should be 2% or something. They're not, and here's why. So the current coronavirus crisis is having a critical impact on the mortgage industry, which could potentially make the 2008 financial crisis pale in comparison. The pressing issue centers around capital that's required by mortgage lenders to be able to function and meet covenants that are required for them to continue to lend. Here's how the mortgage market works. Let's begin with the mortgage process. A borrower goes to a mortgage originator or loan officer to obtain a mortgage. Once closed, the loan is handled by a servicer, which may or may not be the same company that originated the loan. The borrower submits the payments to the servicer. However, the servicer does not own the loan. They are simply maintaining the loan. This means collecting payments and forwarding them to the investor, paying taxes and insurance, answering questions, etc. While they maintain or service the loan, the asset itself is sold to an aggregator or directly to a government entity or agency like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Ginnie Mae, and then the loan gets placed inside of a large bundle, which is put in the hands of an investment banker. That investment banker converts those loans into a mortgage-backed security, or MBS, that can be sold to the public. This shows up in different investments like mutual funds, insurance plans, and our retirement accounts. The servicer's role is very critical. In order to obtain the right to service loans, the servicer will typically pay 1% of the loan amount up front. The servicer then receives a monthly payment or strip equal to about 30 basis points or 30 bips per year, or 0.3%, because they paid about 1% to obtain the servicing rights and receive about 30 bips in annual income. The break-even period is approximately 3 years. The longer that loan remains on the books, the more money that servicer makes. In many cases, the servicer might want to use leverage to increase their level of income. Therefore, they may often finance half of the cost of acquiring that loan and pay the rest in cash. Servicing runoff, or even the anticipation of it, can adversely impact the market valuation of servicing a portfolio, of a servicing portfolio. The servicer dilemma. As you can imagine, when interest rates drop dramatically, there is an increased incentive for many people to refinance their loans more rapidly. This causes the loans that a servicer had on their books to pay off sooner, often before that 3-year break-even period. This servicing runoff creates losses for that mortgage lender who is servicing the loan. The more loans in a mortgage lender's portfolio, the greater the loss. Servicing runoff, or even the anticipation of it, can adversely impact the market valuation of a servicing portfolio. But at the same time, lenders typically experience an increase in new loan activity because of the decline in interest rates. This gives them additional income to help overcome the losses in their servicing portfolio. But the coronavirus has caused a virtual shutdown of the U.S. economy, which has created an unprecedented amount of job losses. This adds a new risk to the servicer because borrowers may have difficulty paying their mortgage in a timely manner. And although the servicer does not own the asset, they have the responsibility to make the payment to the investor, even if they have not yet received it from the borrower. Under normal circumstances, the servicer has plenty of cushion to account for this, but an extreme level of delinquency puts the servicer in an unmanageable position. I'm from the government, and I'm here to help. In the government's effort to help those who have lost their jobs because of the coronavirus shutdown, they have granted forbearance of mortgage payments for affected individuals. This presents an enormous obstacle for servicers who are obligated to forward the mortgage payment to the investor, even though they have not received it yet. Fortunately, there is a new facility set up to help mortgage servicers bridge the gap to the investor. However, it is unclear as to how long it will take for servicers to assess this facility. But what has not been yet contemplated is the fact that a borrower who does not make their very first mortgage payment causes that loan to be ineligible to be sold to an investor. That means that the servicer must hold on to the asset itself, which ties up their available credit. And with so many new loans being originated of late, the amount of transactions that will not qualify for sale is significant. This restricts the lender's ability to clear their pipeline and get reimbursed with cash so they can fund new transactions. The Fed's desire to bring mortgage rates down isn't just damaging servicing portfolios because of prepayments, it's also wreaking havoc or chaos in lenders' ability to hedge their risk. Market to market. This week, due to accelerated prepayments and the uncertainty of repayment, the value of servicing was slashed in half, from 1% to 0.5%. This drastic decrease in value prompted margin calls for many servicers who financed their acquisition of servicing. Additionally, the decreased value of the lender's servicing portfolio reduces the lender's overall net worth. Since the amount a lender can lend is based on a multiple of their net worth, the decrease in value of their servicing portfolio asset, along with the cash paid for margin calls, reduces their capacity to lend. Unintended consequences. The Fed's desire to bring mortgage rates down isn't just damaging the servicing portfolios because of prepayments, it's also wreaking chaos in lenders' ability to hedge their risk. Let's look at what happens when a borrower locks in their mortgage rate with a mortgage lender. Mortgage rates are based on the trading of mortgage-backed securities, or MBSs. As MBS securities rise in price, interest rates improve and move lower. A locked rate on a mortgage is nothing more than a lender promising to hold an interest rate for a period of time or until the transaction closes. The lender is at risk for any MBS price changes in the marketplace between the time they agreed to grant the lock and the time that the loan closes. If rates were to rise because MBS prices declined, the lender would be obligated to buy down the borrower's mortgage rate to the level that they were promised. And since the lender doesn't want to be in a position of gambling, they hedge their locked loans by shorting mortgage-backed securities. Therefore, should MBSs drop in price, causing rates to rise, the lender's cost to buy the borrower's rate is offset by the lender's gains of their short-term positions in MBSs. Now think about what happens when MBS prices improve, causing mortgage rates to decline. On paper, the lender should be able to close the mortgage loan at a higher price than promised to the borrower, giving the lender additional profits. However, the lender's losses on their short position negate any additional profits from the improvement in MBS pricing. This hedging system works well to deliver the borrower what was promised while removing market risk from the lender. But in an effort to reduce mortgage rates, the Fed has been purchasing an incredible amount of mortgage-backed securities, causing their price to rise dramatically and swiftly. This in turn causes the lender's hedged short positions of MBSs to show huge losses. These losses appear to be offset on paper by the potential market gains on the loan that the lender hopes to be able to close in the future. But the broker-dealer will not wait on the possibility of future loans closing and demands an immediate margin call. The recent amount that these lenders are paying in margin calls are staggering. They run in the tens of millions of dollars. All this on top of the aforementioned stresses that lenders are having to endure. So while the Fed believes they are stimulating lending, their actions are resulting in the exact opposite. The market for government loans, jumbo loans, and the loans that don't fit ideal parameters have all but dried up. And many lenders have no choice but to slow their intake of transactions by throttling mortgage rates higher and by reducing the term that they're willing to guarantee a rate lock. Furthermore, the Fed's unintended consequences was the announcement to cut interest rates on the Fed funds rate by 1% to virtually zero. Because the Fed's communication failed to educate the general public that the Fed funds rate is very different than mortgage rates, it prompted borrowers in process to break their locks and try jump ship to a lower rate. This dramatically increased hedging losses from loans that didn't end up closing. It's been said that the stock market will do the most damage to the most people at the worst time. Even Stephen King could not have scripted this. It's been said that the stock market will do the most damage to the most people at the worst time, and the current mortgage market is experiencing the most perfect storm. Just when volume levels were at the highest in history, servicing runoff at its peak, and pipelines hedged more than ever, the coronavirus arrived. Lenders need to clear their pipelines, but social distancing is making it more difficult for transactions to be processed, and those loans that are about to close require that employment be verified. As you can imagine, with millions of individuals losing their jobs, those mortgages are unable to fund, leaving lenders with more hedging losses and no income to offset it. What needs to be done now? Fortunately, there are many smart people in the mortgage industry who are doing everything they can to navigate through these perilous times, including my employer. But the Fed and our government needs to stop making it more difficult. The Fed must temporarily slow MBS purchases to allow pipelines to clear. Lawmakers need to allow for first payment defaults due to forbearance to be saleable. And finally, the Fed must more clearly communicate that mortgage rates and the Fed funds rate are not the same. We have the faith that the effects of the coronavirus will subside and that things will become more normalized in the upcoming months. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. I know it's super long and it's super complicated, but it's such a good summary of the craziness right now. Just because the Fed says rates are down, there's so much more that goes on to it. Hope you're doing great and staying safe.